In that 1 second, I couldn't find it. Okay. 8b, last line. Jules, now you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, you're ready. Okay, good. Rav Asho, we are in the middle of what's going to be, I think, 8 or 9 total answers to the discussion in our Mishnah. Once again, our Mishnah was discussing something called Motzi Shemra. It's a young girl between the first and second stage of marriage. Potentially, she had relations with somebody else, so that's going to get her the death penalty. If the guy is wrong and he made a mistake, he has to pay her 100 shkolim, whatever the currency is, 100. And then he also is not allowed to divorce her forever. So our Mishnah had a discussion, how many judges do you need? 3 or 23? So the one that held 3, obviously we're talking about the monetary case. Now, according to Rashi, the monetary case is he wants to pay less of the ksuba. He sees that she's not, he found out she's not a virgin. Therefore, the ksuba goes down from 200 to 100. Okay, so now, what is the argument in our Mishnah? Why does Rav Meir hold 3 and why does Chacham hold 23? Rav Ashi Amar, it's the following case. Kigon, for example, going on to 9a, Testament Aleph, the Asru Bei Malkus velo Asru Bei Ktala. So we know, we just learned yesterday, that you have to give warning. Before giving capital punishment, you have to give warning. Now, what if you're there and you only warned for Malkus, meaning you warned her that she's going to get biblical lashes, yeah? Below Asru Bei Ktala. However, you did not warn her that she's going to get killed. So that's a machlokas kamiflaki beplukta de Rabbi Shmuel v'Rabbanan. That's a discussion between Rabbi Shmuel and the Rabbanan. Let's see it. The Tanan makos bishlosha. So this is our Mishnah. The Mishnah is our first Mishnah. To execute lashes, you only need 3 people. Mishum Rabbi Shmuel amru be'esrim bishlosha. So we're going to see why he holds that coming up in a daf from now, but he holds 23. So now let's plug that into our case. Motzi Shemra, the husband comes and says that she wasn't a virgin. Now there's either 3 or 23 judges. So and they only warned her, the witnesses only warned her to get lashes and not to get killed. So now, for sure, you're only going to get lashes. You can't kill her if you never warned her to be killed. That we saw yesterday. Either you have to warn her generally that she's going to get killed, or give the exact punishment. But either way, she's for sure getting lashes. So now the machlokas of Meir and the Chachamim is actually the same machlokas as the next part of the Mishnah about how many people do you need to give makos, 3 or 23. Now, why 23 we'll have to see coming up soon. Next answer, number 7, and then we're going to have 2 or 3 answers of Ravina. Yeah, I think it's 8 or 9 total. So let's see. Ravina Amar, an interesting case. He said the explanation in our Mishnah is as follows. You have witnesses that gave her testimony. However, kegon shenimtze echad min ha'edim, karov or pasul. One of the witnesses is either a relative or someone who's invalid to be a witness. Now, we need 2 witnesses, right? You need 2 witnesses. What happens now is, so now, if one of those 2 is a karov or a pasul, you're done. Nothing to talk about. What happens if the 3rd guy is a relative, or he is someone who's invalid to be a witness? So the first 2 are good, and the 3rd one is no good. Does that invalidate the whole bunch or not? So let's see. That is the kamiflagi. The 2 opinions in our Mishnah argue beplukta de Rabbi Yossi v'Rebbe aliba de Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva has a statement. The Tanan Rabbi Akiva Omer lo bashlishi ela lahachmir love. So now, It's really Gemara Makos, but the Torah says Al Pishnei Edim Yakum Davar, right? It says Al Pishnei Edim or Shlosha Edim. And Devarim Yedzayin Vav, it says Al Pishnei Edim O Shlosha Edim. So what's, obviously if you need two witnesses, for sure 3 is going to be good. So what's the added 3? So says Rabbi Akiva, the added 3 is to put on an extra stringency on you when you have 3 witnesses and the third one ends up either saying false testimony, ends up being a relative. What's going to happen now? Even though you don't need him for your testimony because the first 2 did their job, but the Torah tells you that the third one is going to invalidate the rest of them. Just like if 1 out of the 2 is found to be false, we understand why the whole group is puzzled. So too, if the third guy, even though he's not needed for the technical testimony, but if he's part of that group, he's going to invalidate the whole group. That's Rabbi Akiva. Within Rabbi Akiva, we're going to have a machlokas what he held. So now let's see, and then we'll sum it up again. Ditnan, the Mishnah says, Rabbi Akiva Omer Lo Ba Shlishi. Lo Ba Shlishi, the third witness is only coming for what? Ela lahachmir love, to put on a stringency of what? La'asos dino ki yotze ba'elu. To make this, to have the same halacha as the other 2. So now, this is parenthetical, but it's a nice idea. Im Kain, if that's true, that the third guy who joined together with the first 2 is going to have the same punishment as the first 2 if they testify falsely, let's say. Right, let's give an example. The first 3, the 3 witnesses come and they testify Reuben killed Shimon, right? On this and this day, at this and this time. 2 other witnesses come and say, listen, you 3 were at a business conference with us across the world. There's no way you were there. We're not just going to kill the original first 2. We're going to kill all 3 witnesses, right? Because even though the third guy is not necessary for the testimony, if you are a witness in the case, it's all one group. We don't differentiate. So just because the Torah requires 2, but if you're the third guy, you're with the bunch. You're with them. So basically, try to get good friends. So, im kain anash hakazav ala nitfal. Nitfal is tafel, it's secondary, the one who joined along. The Torah punishes the one who joined along, la'ovrei avera, ki ovrei avera. He is like one of the ovrei avera, and he's going to get punished like them. So now, al achas kama v'kama, how much more so does a person get rewarded? She is shalem schar. A person gets rewarded es hanitfa la'osei mitzvah. You have 2 guys going to do a mitzvah, and you join them and help them also. Right? This happened last night in Portland between tens of people that helped a family last night who had a fire in their house. So everyone went and helped them. How much more so do you get paid a reward? Hashem rewards somebody who helps someone do a mitzvah. How do we know this? As Rashi tells us, famous principle, Hashem's positive attributes are way greater than his negative attributes. So meaning if he punishes the one who joins the sinners, how much more so is he going to reward somebody who joins the mitzvah doers? So, kama yishalem schar ala esanit v'lo osei mitzvah kosei mitzvah. What did you say?
We're saying that the witnesses we put in that.
That's in the case that 2 of them testified falsely. 3 of them, sorry. Not in general, just whatever the first 2 get, the third one gets also. So if the first 2, if all 3 of them testified, Reuben killed Shimon, and they were lying, and they're found to be Adam Zoman, witnesses that totally conspired, so then we're going to kill all of them. Not just the first, we can kill the third one too.
This is based on additional.
This is based on that the Torah says on 2 or 3 witnesses, judgment is made. What's the 2 or 3? Rabbi Akiva says the third witness, we view it as one big group. We don't view it as 2 and 1, and then we split it. So too, if the third witness is found to be a brother, if the third witness is found to be invalid for testimony, we don't say, well, we take the first 2 and the third one gets left out. We take all 3 as one group. So now, this is still all the background, because now we're going to have a machlokes within Rabbi Akiva, and then we're going to understand the Pshat in our Mishnah. Just going to be another 7-8 lines. So let's see. Yeah, but you see the power of joining someone to do a mitzvah, even though you weren't necessary for the mitzvah, but to join along, how much more reward do you get? Okay, now, Uma shnayim nimtza echad mehen karav or puzzle, just like two people. If one of the two is found to be a relative or someone who is invalid, a dusan betela, the whole testimony is 100% null and void. Af shlosha, even now you have three witnesses. Nimtza echad mehen karav apostle, a dusan betela. So too, if you have three witnesses, and the third guy is found to be a relative or someone who's invalid to testify, the entire group of witnesses is invalid. It's 100% null and void. Now, we still haven't got to what the pshat in our mission is. Uminayin shafilu meya, maybe even 100. You have 100 witnesses that come. If one of those is a relative, everyone gets to go home. They're off jury duty, yeah? So, uminayin shafilu meya, Talmud lomar, edim. The word edim, I guess the word is extra. Yeah, shnei edim or shlosha edim. So that edim tells you no matter how many witnesses you have, if one of them is invalid, everyone is invalid. Now, here we come to a disagreement within Rabbi Akiva, which will then be the understanding in our Mishnah between Rav Meir and the Chachamim, why you need 3 or 23 judges to judge a case where a guy is trying to have to pay less of his ksuba on his wife. So now, Amar Rabbi Yossi, B'meh dvar mamurim, this is all true, b'dinei nefashos, when it comes to capital punishment, aval b'dinei mamanos, tiskaim edus b'shar. He said this is a special rule by capital punishment. But by monetary punishment, by monetary cases, if you have 3 people, 50 people, 70 people, and some are relatives or some are invalid to testify, you snip them out, you cut them out, and everyone else remains. Now, why is there a special, meaning why is only, it sounds like we're much more lenient by capital punishment. Even if one guy is found to be a relative, everyone goes home. And by monetary cases, we keep going. You're invalid, goodbye, but everyone else stays. Why? This we'll see a lot about. There's a pasuk talking about capital punishment. Rashi brings it. That the pasuk says in Bamidbar Lamed Hey v'hitzilu ha'eda, that you're trying to save the Eda. And the Gemara is going to mention, I think more in the third parak. I can't remember exactly where. I think in the second or third parak. Basically, is that we're always trying. We put a lot of effort into always finding a way for the guy to be innocent. When it comes to capital punishment, we go well above and beyond. We have many exceptions to the rule to try to help the guy not be guilty. So according to Rabbi Yossi, within Rabbi Akiva, this is another application of the verse. Anything we could do to get the guy to be innocent, we're going to do. So if one guy is guilty, if one guy is a relative, so the verse will teach you, everyone goes home. This way, okay, that's all Rabbi Yossi. However, Rabbi Omer, echad dinei mamos ve'echad dinei nefashos. He said it's all the same. Whether it's going to be monetary cases or capital punishment, one guy is found to be a relative or someone who's invalid to testify, everyone gets to go home. Now, when is this true? The Amasai, Bisman shehisru behen. This is true when the relative or the invalid witness goes and testifies. He goes and testifies, and therefore we see he is one of the bunch. Now, what's going to happen? Aval bisman shelo hisru behen. Let's say people are watching something take place, turning the page. So now, ma yasu shnei achim ve'echad shiro be'echad shaharik es nefesh. It's also a little bit parenthetical. We're just pointing out that if you have 3 people watching, Reuben kills Shimon, 2 happen to be brothers going on a nice brotherly walk. They have off from work. They went on a walk together. and now their friend is there too, and all three of them all of a sudden see Reuven kill Shimon, right? So do we say, listen, you three were there at the time where Reuven killed Shimon. Now two of you are good, right? Meaning two of you are good, but one of you is a brother. So therefore, we're going to invalidate the whole bunch. So that we say, no. You only invalidate them when they come to court and testify. Just because they're standing there watching doesn't automatically it might make you a witness that you have to come to court now and say what happened, but that's not going to invalidate the bunch. So now, at the end of the day, Rabbi Akiva says that the reason why the Torah says 2 or 3 is to teach you that the third guy is always grouped together with the first 2. It's one big chevra. So if we're going to kill the first 2, we'll kill the third guy too. If the third guy is a relative or invalid, then it's going to validate everything. Now an argument is, does that only apply by capital cases or also applies by monetary cases? That's 2 opinions. And this, that he can invalidate, is only true when he actually utters the words in court. Just being there watching does not invalidate everything. So, for example, it's a funny case, but when you're at a wedding, yeah, and you have, right, they always call up the rabbi who's going to officiate the wedding, the Masada Kiddushin. Okay. Then they call up the 2 witnesses, the Eidei Kiddushin, right? So now, in the crowd are a lot of relatives. So you don't say, well, since there's a relative watching, he's now a witness, he's invalid to other 2. These 2, as opposed to everybody else. So similar kind of idea. So now, what does that have to do with our Mishnah? So Rashi fills us in. Rav Meir that holds 3, he says that he holds like Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi was the one who just held that only by capital punishment can a relative or someone invalidate the bunch. But by a monetary case, he's not going to invalidate. So therefore, one second. Yeah, so the case in our Mishnah is one of the 3 witnesses is found to be a relative of the other 2 or someone who's invalid. Now he saw what happened and he was quiet. One second. Sorry, 1 second. 1 second. Yeah. Rebbe says that this is only true when you actually come and utter the words in Bezdin. But if you were just watching, then you're not going to invalidate the bunch. That's a machlokes, Rebbe and Rabbi Yossi. So meaning our case in our Mishnah is where one of them is a relative or someone who's invalid. He saw what happened, he was quiet, and he didn't testify. Rav Meir is going to say, like Rabbi Yossi, that it doesn't matter if you came and testified or not. If you were there, then you invalidated the bunch, and therefore it cannot be judged as a capital punishment case because since a relative or someone who's endowed to testify was there at the time when he saw what happened, he's now considered a witness. Since he's a witness, he invalidates the bunch. So therefore, it can only be a monetary case. And the other opinion, the Rabbanan, they hold like Rebbe, that even though he was quiet, but he holds like Rebbe that even though the guy was quiet, so since he was quiet originally, he never said his testimony in Bezdin, we don't invalidate the whole bunch. So basically, there's 2 machlokas here between Rabbi Yossi and Rebbe. One machlokas is, does a karev or apostle, a relative, or someone invalid witness, does he invalidate the bunch? Does that apply to monetary cases as well as capital punishment, or only capital punishment cases? That's one argument. A second argument seems to be, if you're just watching, does that make you right now a witness that if you are found to be a relative or invalid, you're going to invalidate the bunch? So Rebbe says that to be a witness who invalidates the bunch, you have to come and actually utter the words in Bezdin. Just the fact that you were there at the time of the incident is not going to invalidate everybody else. Since it's not going to invalidate everybody else, that's why the Rabbanan and our Mishnah hold you can still judge with 23, right? Meaning you could still, because one of the guys was a relative, but he never uttered his testimony in Bezdin. Therefore, he's going to, it'll still remain a capital punishment case. As opposed to the other opinion that says, since a guy was there at the time where he saw everything happen, and he was a relative, therefore we invalidate the bunch, and therefore it then becomes a monetary case, and we can only judge with 3 people. Another answer according to Ravina, that wasn't exciting enough. The Ibayis Ema Kigon. Now, what happens if you have witnesses who don't come and say, we saw what happened? They come and say, we saw 2 people who saw what happened. Right? So now, what is that? What is that?
No, I just wrote.
Yeah.
I know somebody who knows somebody.
Exactly. Yeah, a good game of Jewish geography. So, the Ibayis Ema Kigon Shehisruba Acherim below Hisruba Edim. So now you have other people that said, we saw the witnesses warn them. Does that work or does that not work? The Kamiflagi, Rav Meir, and the Chachamim argue, Beplukta Rabbi Yossi v'Rabbanan. What are they arguing about in Makos? Titnan Rabbi Yossi Omer la'olam enu nerag, achu pi shnei ediv masrim bo. You have to have the actual 2 witnesses give them testimony. That is Rabbi Yossi. Shenamar, how do I know? Al pi shnayim edim. Has to be with their mouth. And the Rabbanan are going to argue and say that even if people came and said, we saw 2 witnesses who saw the case, that's still going to be valid. So now, what's that have to do with us? So now, according to Rabbi Yossi, you have to have those 2 witnesses come to court. So that's why, according to Rav Meir, it's only going to be a case of 3 people, because he holds like Rabbi Yossi, who, unless those 2 witnesses come to court, it's not going to be a case of capital punishment. So if 2 witnesses come and say, we saw 2 witnesses see the case, that's not going to be good, but it'll still be a good monetary case. And according to the Chachamim, that it'll still be good. 2 people come and say, we saw 2 people that gave testimony, that warned them, that's still going to be valid. So it could still be a case of capital punishment. Therefore, the Chachamim argue, and they say you could still judge it with 23. So basically, in our Mishnah, when it's 3 or 23, according to the last few answers, it's just a way of saying, is it a monetary case or is it a capital punishment case? And for whatever reason you hold it should not be a capital punishment case, you're left with only a monetary case. And that's what Rav Meir holds. Okay. I think this is answer number 8 or 9. Oh, so now, the Ibayis Ema, we know that when witnesses come, the Torah tells us, V'darashta v'chakar tehetiv. There's something called Drisha v'chakir, which is going to come up later on in the Masechta. When witnesses come, what do you do with them? So there's 2 things you do. There's 2 questions you have to ask. There's one is called the chakira, which is the what day did it happen? Those very important details. However, there's another group of details called Drisha, like what were they wearing? Those details. Now, you have to ask them both questions. What happens if they got some of the minor facts wrong, but the major facts remain? They both. So you put them both in different rooms, and you drill them, and they both come out saying it was the same time in the same place in the same city, the same names of the people. They got that all right. However, he was wearing a black hat, he was wearing a white hat, he was wearing a straw hat. Those details they got wrong. So now the Ibayis Ema going to iskish bibedikos. Iskish means chasha means they contradict each other. So he's wearing a white shirt, no, he's wearing a brown shirt. So there you found a contradiction in the bedikos. Below iskish bechakiros, but there is no contradiction in the chakiros. What day it was, things like that. If that was contradictory between the witnesses, so then you throw it out, their testimony. Now, this is a machlokas v'kamiflagi v'plukta de ben Azai v'Rabbanan. This is a debate between Ben Zakai v'Rabbanan. between Ben Zakkai and the Rabbanan. Ditnan, the Mishnah said, Maise Ubadak, there was a certain case and they went to investigate. Ubadak Ben Zakkai be'uktzei te'enim. Ben Zakkai went, and the uketz is the tail of a fig. What's a better word for tail of a fig? The stem of a fig. Thank you. The stem of a fig. So now, witnesses there's a certain case where they went to investigate, and witnesses say that this case happened under a fig tree. So now one person said the fig had a stem, and and it was a thin stem, and one person said it was a thick stem. And in that detail, they found a contradiction. Sounds better to not say what kind of stem it was, and you'll be good. So now that's a machlokas Ben Zakkai and the Rabbanan. So now, once again, in our Mishnah, if you say a motzi shemer is with 3 people, it's because there was a contradiction in these minor details, and you hold that a contradiction in the minor details is enough to invalidate the testimony. Therefore, you cannot have any. It cannot be a capital punishment case. It can only be a monetary case, and that's Rav Meir. The Rabbanan hold that a contradiction in a minor detail in the drishos is not enough to invalidate their testimony. Therefore, they can still judge it as a case of capital punishment. That's why you have 23 judges. Okay, that concludes, I think, our 8 or 9 answers for what the case in our Mishnah is. Okay, now Jared's not here, but you can let him know. He clarified. He asked the question yesterday to clarify, but I saw today it wasn't so simple. Just so we know, this whole time that a guy wants money, right? He says, I woke up the next morning and the wife wasn't a virgin. And now Rashi says it's that he wants less money from his ksuba. Instead of paying 200, he wants that. In the event of a death or divorce, he only wants to pay 100. But I saw that that's Rashi's opinion. Tosas over here, he says, no, the money over here that's discussed is actually the money of a husband who comes and lies. Let's say he's wrong, right? And really, she wasn't like that. He has to pay 100 zuz, 100 shekel. So it's this that the husband is trying to get out of. He wants to get out of paying this 100. That's what the whole discussion is. So just interesting. Yeah, fine. So that's that. Now, just something about Motzi Shemra, and then we go on to a very exciting, very hard to understand cases. Okay, so yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're gonna get a few. I remember in yeshiva, these were very hard. So let's see. Amar of Yosef, Hevi Habal Edim. Okay, this case is pretty fun too. Don't worry. Okay, Rav Yosef says Hevi Habal Edim. So the husband comes and bring witnesses that what Shezinsa, a lady between the first and second stage of marriage, she had relations with somebody else. Okay, and now the husband brought witnesses to testify about that. Good, they testified. So now, what's the ramification of their testimony? So the ramification is we're going to kill her. Okay, so now the Hevi Ha'av Edim, the Hezimum Le'ede Habal. The father brings witnesses, the father of the girl brings witnesses, and they prove that the husband's witnesses are total liars. Because the husband witnesses claimed on Thursday of the first day of Hanukkah, this happened. And they say, you were by Pioneer Square last night. You had no way. We saw you there. There's no way that you were there for the testimony. Now, what's the ramification of these witnesses? So, first thing is the first 2 witnesses tried to kill the lady. So the witnesses that tried to kill the lady, they're going to get what they tried to give. So that's the first thing. Also, though, the husband turns out to be a liar, right? So he comes and is literally motzi shemra. Literally, he gives a bad name to the woman. When you give a bad name to the woman, you have to pay. The husband has to pay. 1 second. There's one more monetary result. What's that? 1 second. Yeah. Oh, the ksuba. the first witnesses come and say she was mizana, right? The husband brings witnesses that say that between the first and second year of marriage, she had relations with somebody else. Two ramifications of that. One, we kill her. Two, there's definitely no ksuba, right? That's when the witnesses of the father now come and they say you two are totally conspiring. It's not true. Now we add a third thing over here. The husband has to now pay 100 selah. Yeah, correct. So now, what happens? So once again, Amar Rav Yosef, Hevi Habal Edim Shazinsa Behavia Av Edim Vehizimim LeEde Habal. So the husband brings witnesses that she had relations with somebody else. Now, Hevi Av Edim Vehizimim LeEde Habal. The father brings witnesses and chucks their testimony out the window. That you guys weren't there, you were with us, and therefore you're lying. Now, what's the rule? Eide Habal Neherogin Ve'ein Mishalmin Mamun. The witnesses of the husband will get killed. Now, they also try to make her lose her ksuba. However, they don't pay for that. Because the rule is, when you have two punishments, you get the stronger punishment. And that's learned out of a verse. So here, when you're getting killed and you have to pay, so you're only going to have to get killed. And I guess you're off the hook, so to speak. You have to pay. There's a discussion in the Rishonim, when you have two punishments, you only can get the higher punishment. You're exempt from the lesser punishment. Is that do you still need to pay bidei shemayim in heaven? Meaning, how do you view it? The lower punishment is here, but the court can obligate you into. Meaning, this idea that you only get the harder punishment, it's a halacha in the court. The court can't obligate you to, but Hashem still obligates you to pay for that. Is it halacha in the court? The court can't make you pay twice? Or you view it, no. When you have one punishment, the second one never gets off the ground. And therefore, even in Shemayim, you don't have to pay. So, or do tshuva for that. So now,
In the stages of marriage, what about after? That's one of the
that's
stages.
also death penalty, yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to have different rules than an official motzi shemra. Yeah, motzi shemra sounds like a very specific case. But what is that? Correct. But in general, if she's found to be having relations with somebody else after she's fully married, it's also not such a pretty ending for her. Yeah. So okay. So now the father brings witnesses, and they find that the husband's witnesses are Eidim Zomin. They are totally false witnesses. So now those witnesses get killed and do not need to pay the ksuba money because they're getting killed. Now, it gets more exciting. Chazer behavior bal edim. The husband comes back with two witnesses that show us they testify that the father's witnesses are false witnesses, right? So this is the third set of witnesses, and what happens? Vehizimum le'ede. Chazer behavior habal edim vehizim le'ede av. So the husband's witnesses come, then the father's witnesses come, then the husband's witnesses come, and they say that the father's witnesses are false. So now, Eide ha'av neherogin u'mishalmin mamun. So now, what were the second group of witnesses, the father's witnesses? When they came and they said that the husband's witnesses are false witnesses, so what they tried to do, they found the husband to be guilty of motzi shemra, which is of 100 selah he has to pay, and they found the witnesses to be it's distracting, and they found the witnesses to be guilty and be liable of the death penalty, right? So now, here we just said that when you're obligating the same person death and money, you only get death. But here it's two separate parties. The witnesses of the father that came were obligating the witnesses of the husband the death penalty. And now they also were obligating the husband to pay 100 selah as his punishment for motzi shemra. So now when those witnesses are found to be false, because the third set of witnesses comes and falsifies the father's witnesses, so there we don't say you get killed and you're exempt, because it is they're neheragin, they get killed. But umishalmin mamon, why? It's mamon lezeh ve'nefashos lezeh.
Only because they were a zero time, not because they were falsehoods.
Well, it has to be Adam Zoman, correct? Not just contradicts. That's called Eidei Achasha. Yeah, only when they're found not to be there, not if they mess up in the details. Yeah, that's true. So right, falsify would be too much of a general word. How do you say Adam Zoman in English? They're found to be conspired witnesses. I don't know, something like that. Okay, fine. So that's those are the easy cases. Now, here's the cases where, at least in understanding, there's like many layers here. So if you're confused, join the club. Here we go. The Amar of Yosef. Rav Yosef says the following case. A guy comes and he says, Ploni Riva'o La'onso. Another male forced me to have relations with him. Ploni Riva'o La'onso. Right, he was an onus. It was by force. So now, that's one witness. Someone else saw the case also. Right? So that is a second witness. Can they combine together or not? One is the victim, and one is an outsider. So, says Rav Yosef, Hu ve'acher mitztarfen lahargo. They can combine to kill the guy who forcibly raped this victim. That's one case. Second case.
So a victim can be a witness?
Oh, that's what comes out right now. Yes. And this is very difficult. We'll see why in a second. So what if he said, though, lirtzono? You say, Ploni Ravo, this person had relations with me, but he says lirtzono, but I did it willingly. So now, Russia who? You're called a Russia because that's something which is not allowed. So you're testifying about yourself that you committed an Aveira. Then you're called a Russia. So what's wrong with that? Who said a Russia can't testify? Oh, the HaTorah Amra, the Torah says, Al Teshas Russia aid, that a Russia cannot be a witness.
But anything, that's about himself.
Also true. The problem is that in about 3 weeks from now, we're going to see Tosa brings this up, that it's sometimes it's a machlokas what kind of Russia cannot testify. And according to one understanding, it's only a Russia in monetary cases cannot testify. So according to that, Tosus has a problem here. This guy is not a Russia in monetary cases. He's a Russia in another area. That's Tosus' problem over here. Interesting, food for thought. Okay, there's many layers here. But now, what happens over here? Since the guy admitted to doing something wrong, he's a Russia. Therefore, you can't be a witness. Therefore, you're not going to be able to combine with the other witness to kill the guy, right? So now that's Rav Yosef. Yeah. Now Rava Amar, very interesting, like this. Adam Karav Eitzel Atzma. Now we know that there are different people that are invalid to be witnesses. One of them we just saw earlier were relatives. Says the Gemara, a person is a relative to himself. I don't remember right now, but either the reason why a relative can't testify because he always has personal agenda, that's one, or because of a verse. There's a big machlokas exactly if I remember correctly, what the pshat is. But either way, Rava Amar Adam Karvei Talatzmo. So Rava says a person he's a relative to himself, right? That's one. And two, the Ein Adam Mesim Atzma Russia. And a person cannot make himself a Russia. So what are you left with? So now, Rava says to us, what do you do like this?
The point is, we won't believe him for two reasons.
Yes, question, why you need both? That's the very difficult part. You shouldn't need both cases. You should need only one. But now what happens? Listen to this. And this is where it gets difficult. Since you cannot testify for yourself, we take your words, Ploni Riva'o, the other guy who had relations with me, he says, so the with me, you cut out. That part you cut out. And the other part of the sentence you keep. So even when you say, I did it willingly, Rava says, since you cannot invalidate yourself with your own mouth because you yourself are relative to yourself, therefore you're a witness who cannot testify. Therefore, you can't make yourself into a Russia. Only someone else can make you a Russia. You can't make yourself into a Russia. So you would have said, so then the guy's kicked out of Bezdin, goodbye. But no. So what happens now? So now what we say, we kill the guy that had relations with him. Why? Says Rashi, a famous principle, which is in understanding, it makes the brain, have a hard time. It's called Polgin and Dibura. We can split your words. Meaning, the fact that Ploni had relations, that part we keep. The part, because we split it. So now you're only false testifying about the other part, the willingly part. There, you can't testify about yourself, and you can't testify to make yourself a Russia. So the willingly part, we don't hear. We cut that out. The first part we do hear, and therefore, even in the case where you're saying willingly, we're still going to kill the guy. Right? Now, why does that work? What the source of that is? Who says you could do that? Right? What happened to the other half of your sentence? It's just like we just cut it out? What does that mean? Obviously not. It's just like a story. What do you do with that information? So that's where it's very hard in understanding, where the Rishonim are busy and the Achronim trying to figure out, like, how does this work? And if it's so good, what happened to Rav Yosef?
The case in Rosh Hashanah where the Edom come and they say, we saw the old moon in the morning and new moon at night. And they're rejected. It is Sheker hands. That's impossible.
Okay.
But I think was said, except I don't care what they said.
Right. And we're going to see many more cases about this on Daf Yod. But the question is, first of all, what does Rava mean? Why does he need two statements? That's one difficulty. Two, what's this idea of Palgin and Dibur? You can split someone's words. Where does it come from? What's the reason behind it? How does that work? Number three is, if it's so good and it really works, so why did Rav Yosef not agree to this? Where does Rav Yosef argue? Does Rav Yosef say a person could make himself into a Russia? This is where, like, a lot of difficulty comes in. Yeah. So we're going to stop here because we finished.